are you working on those wording?
No, I've actually written it down, but it's just completely unreadable to anybody else. So
Excellent.
That's fine.
People don't need to see that written up, do they? You're generally happy with that? So are there any other questions? So I'll put oh no, I don't need to put this, but we're accepting that this is the, or do we need to resolve to accept this?
If you like, Madam Chair, you'll see under 9.3 above, if you want, we can start making some bullet points where it says to be listed on the things that you're requiring us to do today. So we could, for example, put in added wording in relation to quality.
Strategic outcomes.
To the strategic
added wording
vision.
in relation to strategic outcomes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yanni?
So,
Thank you. So we're now into questions around the whole thing?
No.
No, we're just dealing with the strategic outcomes, but is that all done and dusted? So people are happy with that? So if you want to carry on through the rest, so if we're finished on this, we can then move on to the.
It's just 2 more pages on the.
We
vision.
agreed to wording change on the last paragraph on endemic.
outcome 9. Yes.
Okay? Yeah.
Outcome
So
9. Yes.
amend the last
Yes.
paragraph.
Yes.
Yep.
So then just turning to the last 2 pages, which are sections out of the introduction chapter, again with some additions in purple. Most of those additions really just take out of what was proposed to be in the strategic directions chapter and add them into the introduction chapter at appropriate places, and most of them relate to things like statements such as under 4.2a that the district plan must not be inconsistent with the Christchurch Central Recovery Plan, and similar statements that were in the previous chapter that are no longer relevant under the strategic outcomes section. But I'll just point in particular to C at the bottom of the first page, that's under 4.2, where there's also, we've added a note in particular about, again, the LERP directions for reducing consenting and notification requirements and addressing the efficiency and effectiveness of urban design provisions, again, because we're aware that that's something that, we are already doing in the district plan, but it's something that's obviously of considerable importance to the government. And that was all.
Yeah, I just wonder whether we should put the expiry date of the legislation in there, just as a note to self.
Of the Earthquake Recovery Act.
Yeah, it's the 19th of April 2016, not that I'm counting.
I will add that in.
Yeah, but I think it is worth noting because this is a document that's going to speak in the future, so and we might come back after the 19th of April 2016 and do some more.
Yes.
Yanni.
Can we just stop it after it says the plan can be viewed and then link to the plan? Or even after the district plan must not be inconsistent with the land use recovery plan?
Sorry, where's this?
On page 1 of 2 under chapter 1 introduction. I just think having extra wording in there talking about reduced consenting and notification provides more ammunition for people to argue at a higher level than what actually I think would be our intention, which is through the changes we've made to the district plan, that's where those things have been addressed. But I am concerned to have this as, I think the less we say about that, the better. Because notification, no doubtly, will be one of the major community issues that people do not understand. So, if you think of what we're doing with the flooding, actually one of the problems we've got is people don't need needs for consent, and then it means we end up with problems. Likewise with some of the notification on things that are impacting on local communities. I think just having this in here is like a red flag to a bull, and it only provides ammunition for those people to argue that they don't need a consent or they don't need a notification, when actually that's better addressed through the substance of the plan itself.
So I'm sorry, I'm at a loss here. What do you want taken out?
From where it says the district plan must not be inconsistent with the land use recovery plan, simply delete from there on in.
But we have provided for reduced consenting and notification requirements and address the efficiency and effectiveness of urban design provisions. In some respects, it's actually better to state what we've done, because they might run the argument that we haven't done it if we don't mention it. I mean, but we have done it. We actually have reduced consenting and notification requirements and on occasions where that is appropriate. And we have addressed efficiency and effectiveness of urban design provisions. I mean, the one thing that I think could be added to that is actually that it's the people of Christchurch that want quality urban design. I mean, all of the conversations that we've had publicly about what's that called, the something comprehensive development mechanism or whatever it is.
Yes.
It's all been about design-led, because the last thing the people of Christchurch want is for a whole bunch of houses to be dumped on a site and to have no connection to the surrounding neighbourhood. So it's been very much driven from the people of Christchurch, and I actually think the government would fully appreciate that. But if they want us to take that out, I'd rather that we put that in there and let them take it out, because that's what the people of Christchurch have told us that they absolutely want.
That's correct, and it goes as far back as to the share an idea consultation process too.
That's right.
What this means from government's point of view is that we basically don't have as much urban design friction, and we don't have as much engagement with our communities. And the
But
worry
this is
I
what
have,
the land use recovery plan said.
yeah, but the point I'm making is that what you don't want is for a wording in here that enables the lawyers and the people with money who apply for consents or apply to get non-notified consents having further ammunition to use in their case.
But this is going into the
against things
introduction.
being
This is the whole point of avoiding it going into the...
That's what the lawyers do. They read through the wording, they highlight the wording, they'll come to the staff and say, well, we don't need a consent because you've got it in here, or we don't need it to be notified because you can't be inconsistent and we're supposed to reduce notification.
But
And
that's
they'll
what the
argue that.
land use recovery plan says.
Yeah.
At a-
There's
at
no
a
reason
general-
why urban design should take huge amounts of time. It should be efficient and effective. Absolutely, it should be
And we
great
have made
and
it efficient and effective.
Just leave it in.
Well, no, but could we add a phrase about how we've really, that the people of Christchurch have really spoken? I mean, because they have. I mean, this is not something that, officials have sat around and worked out for themselves, or that we've sat around and just thought of. It's actually something that the people of Christchurch have said. And I know that every
Yes, we
time I
can.
talk about something being design-led, that's the only way that people will start to really relate to the intensification objectives.
Yes, we can, Madam Chair.
It is really, just as you were saying before, a chapter about what
Yeah.
the land use recovery plan says.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, putting an extra sentence that it's a priority that we achieve design-led
Yep.
urban designers.
It can go in fact, in the strategic outcomes, an explanation of why that has become so important. Because of the words we've been given from the community.
There, I think that's right.
And
yeah.
as you say in the introduction chapter, it does hold no legal weight. That's been explained before by our legal counsel.
Well, if we could add those words to Vicky's intro, would that...
I've got design.
There is
Yeah.
Great design lead for environmental.
Yes, but it's the fact that it's come from the community. This is not just a...
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
We want to reflect our community's desire.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Like,
So we'll just move on now to Mark
Yeah.
Stevenson, the final piece of work, commercial and industrial.
Yep.
It's what I'm about to speak to about is highly relevant given the discussion about high quality design. Since we came to speak to you last, we've had an independent review of the commercial and the industrial chapters. That's to ensure that the chapters and their supporting analysis are robust as we go into a formal process. a key issue that's arisen from that independent review by a planning consultant and an economic consultant has been the unbalanced nature of urban design provisions. Whilst they seek to achieve high quality design, they are not enabling in commercial zones. So to encourage activity into commercial zones, we need to show a level of provision that's enabling of that activity, given that at the present time there's provisions that enable retailing and offices outside of those centres, and we're trying to offer a carrot to go into a centre as opposed to simply beating them with a stick to get out of industrial areas. There's the risk that the urban design provisions are seen as a disincentive to go into commercial areas, and we need to get that balance right between achieving high quality design whilst ensuring that we're showing a willingness and wanting to enable development in those places that we want that activity to occur. In order to achieve that, we're proposing some amendments to the thresholds for when development is subject to an urban design assessment, and I'll briefly talk you through those rather than referring to the chapter. Now, in the previous draft that came to you, there was a requirement for resource consent to enable an assessment of urban design for any development on a key pedestrian frontage, which are those sections of a centre that there's a lot of activity and we want to promote activity. Outside those key pedestrian frontages, any development over 250 square metres was required to have resource consent. Below that threshold, there'd still be standards in the plan that required to be a permitted activity that you were built up to the road front, that you had a minimum area of glazing, and that you had a veranda. Now, what is proposed to get that balance right between enabling development whilst also achieving good design is to increase the threshold for when a resource consent is required to enable an assessment of urban design, and it's proposed to increase that threshold to 500 square metres. So any development of 500 square metres or more would be subject to that urban design assessment. That's to recognise that the key issues that we're facing in terms of urban design are the large-scale, big box type developments that we've seen that have the blank walls and lack that interaction with the street. It's also about capturing sites that are highly prominent. So we are proposing a threshold that any site that has a frontage of 20 metres or more is also subject to an urban design assessment. And thirdly, sites that are on a corner and have a key pedestrian frontage, we see those sites as being prominent and highly visible, and those sites can create landmarks within a centre as well as at the gateways to a centre. So essentially there's three triggers proposed: a 500 square metre threshold, corner sites, and sites with a long frontage. And in our minds that achieves a greater balance between design whilst enabling development. Having discussed these thresholds which are put forward in the draft to you with the urban design team, there's felt to be a need to recognise that to support the suburban centre master plans, we want to ensure all development in those areas, that all development doesn't compromise the objectives of those master plans. And so we're proposing to retain the previous thresholds of any development on a key pedestrian frontage within Sydenham, Sumner, and in fact all development in Littleton, to recognise those centres where there's a greater need for recovery and a higher standard to recognise the character that's in those centres. Those three centres at this stage, but with phase 2 we are looking at other master plans.
Does that actually, I understand, and I think it's great, those thresholds you're putting in place. Does that actually pertain to tenants? So certain tenants create inactive frontages. So if we take the square pre-earthquake leading in from Hereford Street south, you come in your BNZ Bank on one side, ANZ Bank on the other side, two blank frontages on the ground floor, totally inactive and really destroy the amenity. You go down, also down Manchester Street, you had the Shooters, the Grumpy Mole, and all those bars that were shut during the day and just killed the area. So tenancies, in my mind, are also quite crucial to understand what the tenancies are, even can be smaller frontages, and how they can actually affect in the same way.
That example obviously is applicable to suburban centres where these rules apply, and the urban design assessments rules apply to any development. Now, if a tenant replaced a previous tenant in a building and decided to cover up the glazing on the frontage of that site, then that would trigger a non-compliance with the urban design rules, which would enable an assessment of that non-compliance. In addition, I should point out that uses that don't have that active frontage with the street, namely offices, which can have a frosted glass window and guest accommodation, we're directing that to above ground floor and really promoting, as well as residential above ground floor. So we're really promoting the use of that ground floor for the types of activity that will have that relationship with the street.
Yep, Tim and then Vicky, is it?
I guess
Yeah.
one step before what Paul's talking about is if you looked at the old Cathedral Square, you had the ANZ building, which personally I thought was hideous. Then you had the BNZ. You had so many different designs, and the council had absolutely no control on those. You go to other squares around the world, and they have to conform, or they're beautiful. So with these standards, do we have to come up as a council with a type of design we want for Cathedral Square, or through those?
There's some key principles that will be considered as part of the design assessment. So those examples you've given are all developments that would breach the threshold, exceed the threshold of 500 square metres. So effectively there'd be an assessment which is limited to matters of discretion specified in the chapter, and that considers not just the relationship with the street, but how that development fits with the surroundings, and looks at a whole range of matters. So it would very much deal with the issues that have been raised here.
It's a quick turnaround though, isn't it? The design part of it.
Yeah, there's clauses that have been included in the chapter to not require notification of those resource consent applications. So effectively, any application that comes in and is subject to that design assessment has to be processed within 20 working days.
Yeah.